friends, I am Dr. Kuldeep Mohadikar. In this video, I will present my third chapter from my series Literary Pearls. The chapter is entitled as Andrew Marvell as Metaphysical Poet. Friends, Andrew Marvell was essentially one of the last products of the metaphysical school. It can be said the school of John Donne in miniature. We will see what are the metaphysical qualities and themes in Andrew Marvell. Many qualities are related in Marvell's poetry which can be called as metaphysical. The relation of the human soul to this world and the world beyond. There is also fusion of thought and feeling which is chief quality of metaphysical poetry. There are plenty of conceits which is again a distinctive quality of metaphysical. Imagery is vivid and concrete, which is also a special feature of metaphysical poetry. Marvell's poetry is characterized by an extraordinary terseness of style, which is chief quality of metaphysical poetry. The word metaphysical concerned with fundamental problems of the nature of the universe and man's place in the world. In the poem Life, a dialogue between the soul and body on a drop of dew and the coronet, there are metaphysical themes. In these poems, poet deals with the nature of human soul and its relation to this world and the world beyond. We will see how Andrew Marvell uses the fusion of passion and thought. Metaphysical poetry is an excellent combination of passion and thought. Marvell in many of his poems express fairly strong emotions simultaneously having an intellectual character. These poems have an argumentative quality and the argument moves in a logical manner. To His Coy Mistress is a poem of seduction offered as an argument directed at the lady of the title. He offers an argument as to why she should submit to him, and he uses an extended metaphor to describe the life cycle, to show how short it truly is, and so to argue the time is fleeting, and so the lovers should consummate their love while they may. The passionate and paradoxical argument touched with humor and learned imagery. The sudden urging of passion in bold image, if fantastic and passionate lines, as I quote, "But at my back I always hear time's mingled chariot hurrying near." I unquote. The woman is coy because she has been resisting the advances of the poet, and her coyness is no crime to him, though he wishes to make love to her and she is resisting him. I quote, "Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse." I unquote. Marvell extends this situation through numerous references to events in history and so creates a sense of time as continuing and rapidly moving element in both life and the poem. We will see what is wit and metaphysical conceits in Marvell's poetry. There are plenty of wit and metaphysical conceits in Marvell's poetry. The meaning of wit means the putting together of heterogeneous ideas. Metaphysical conceits astonishes us by unexpected comparison. The poem The Definition of Love opens with metaphysical conceit when the poet says that his love was begotten by despair upon impossibility. There is a conceit in almost every stanza of this poem. To His Coy Mistress, acclaimed long after Marvell's death, a masterly work, is a lyrical poem that scholars also classify a poem with witty conceits. One of the wittiest conceits is to be found in To His Coy Mistress when the poet employs hyperbole and says that he would spend hundreds and thousand years in praising the various limbs and organs of his mistress's body. I quote, "But 30,000 to the rest, an age at least to every part." I unquote. There is a gross exaggeration, that is hyperbolic expression, as in lines, and 100 years should go to praise thine eyes and thy forehead gaze, 200 to adore each breast. The picture of the woman lying in her grave and the worms attacking her long preserved virginity and her honor turning to dust are conceits because worms are here regarded as being capable of seducing a woman and a dead woman. I quote, then worms shall try that long preserved virginity and your quaint honor turn to dust. I unquote. There is no end to the use of metaphysical concepts by Marvell. The poem upon Appleton House is full of them. There are imagery, abrupt openings, and dramatic quality in Marvell's poetry. Particularly, the imagery in the second half of the definition of love is of the learned kind. The poet imagines that he and his beloved have been placed as far apart as the poles, and goes on to say that if they are to be united, the world should all the cramped into the planisphere. The fair singer ends with an image of two army generals facing each other, and both desire for the advantage of wind and sun. The imagery in A Drop of Dew is also very learned, especially when the soul is compared to manna in the last lines. We can say that imagery is of concrete kind. Even abstract ideas like soul appears before us in concrete form. The imagery in the above mentioned poems show another metaphysical quality. These poems open in abrupt and dramatic manner without any introduction. There is an element of suspense, and we curiously await the next speech from the contestant whose turn is to speak. There is terseness of style in Marvell's metaphysical poetry. The first quality that strikes us in Marvell's poetry is an extraordinary terseness. Marvell shows talent for condensation and compression. The style of the poem to his coy mistress is marked by compression and economy in the use of words. There is a concentration of meaning in the lines, and poet shows skill in compressing his ideas in the fewest possible words. The idea of time passing rapidly has been compressed in 4 lines, and the idea of beauty and charm of the woman has been stated in few words. Some of the lines have an epigrammatic quality. Epigrammatic means short poem expressing an ingenious thought with point usually satirical. Here are illustrations of the epigrammatic manner of writing. I quote, the beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. I unquote. I quote again, the grave is a fine and private place, but none I think do there embrace. I unquote. In the poem The Garden, we have examples of highly condensed epigrammatic style. For example, I quote, society is all but rude to this delicious solitude. 2 paradises, it were in one to live in paradise alone. I unquote. So Marvell's best poetry combines true metaphysical wit with perfect classical grace to a greater degree than that of any other poet of 17th century. Marvell produced some of the most perfect poems in the language, but he was not a major poet. For all the accomplishments of his writing, he was essentially one of the last products of metaphysical school. He can call as the school of Donne in miniature, working with all the variation of that style, and at his very best a finer poet than Donne and Dryden. So this was all about my 3rd chapter dealing with Andrew Marvell as a metaphysical poet. So thanks friends.